Hi everyone and welcome along. Today we're going to paint a lovely butterfly on a flower. We're going to go for a Monarch butterfly on an Echinacea flower. So grab your paints and let's get started. So we're going to begin by drawing in a stem and then just creating a base for our flower. So we're going to do an Echinacea, which is a sort of cone flower. So I'm drawing in the shape of the center of that flower, and then from there the petals are all going to anchor out from that point. I'm not going to worry about painting in the petals too much, but we are going to put in a little monarch butterfly. So a little oval for the body, the sort of thorax and head and abdomen, but the key thing is the wings. So first off, they seem to separate into two sections. So if we go from the neck, sort of out fairly horizontally in a nice big curve that comes quite far down, and then join it up there, and then up, it comes further out, and then sort of S-curve down back in there, and that's a pretty good shape for our butterfly. And we're going to be painting in a sort of a nice loose-ish style that we're then going to add detail over the top of. So a monarch butterfly has orange wings with black detail and little white dots over the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take cadmium orange and cadmium red, and first off with my size 4 brush I am going to fill in the lower wing with water. It's a tiny bit colourful from the orange, so that's quite useful. You probably can just see the faintest bit, so just fill in that section. And then I'm going to take some cadmium orange and I'm just going to place it in that corner there, and it is going to just very, very slowly bleed out a little bit, because what I want is a sense of a paler colour in this one here, and I'm also going to just dab in some colour along the side, sort of down there, just using the side of my brush. Okay, whilst we let that dry, we can paint in the petals from here. Now an Echinacea flower has lovely pink petals, so permanent rose. Permanent rose seems to be my hardest working colour at the moment. I'm getting it nice and dilute, adding water in there, and size 4 brush is pretty good. So you can either sort of actually paint in from the centre, or you can sort of imagine, and we're creating nice dilute petals that probably take sort of 2 brush strokes to get really nicely, and I want to paint them in so that they're fairly spaced out, but they're really nice and dilute, curving downwards. I might even use 3 brush strokes for the ones at the front, so they sort of taper off quite nicely. A little bit of unpainted space here, there's quite nice. And we're just making sure there are gaps in between them all for this stage. We'll just get this layer painted in and everything can dry. So that's dried really nicely, so we'll fill in the higher section. Oh, it's got a tiny bit of pink on the water. That is also okay. Sometimes it's just really impossible to get your brush 100% clean unless you've got all sorts of separate jars of water, whereas for filming I tend to just have the one on the go. But anyway, filling that water in, and the top section of wing for a monarch butterfly just has a slightly stronger sort of red-orange colour. So that's it, lovely. So you can see why it's very important that the first section dries before we put this one in. And then I am going to just do the same thing again there, and we'll let it dry, and then the great thing is in the meantime we can pop in some more petals. But the one difference here is I'm going to be adding just a little bit more detail to these petals. I need the rigger brush ready, and I also need the alizarin crimson ready. It's really important to have a little bit of prep before you sort of launch into your paintings each time. So let's go. So I'm painting the petals in the gaps, and what will happen is, because they're nice and dilute, we'll see all the petals in together. So I'm going to paint a few because I want them to just have dried a little bit, being a little bit more careful with the shapes of my petals this time rather than just launching in. So first off, a little bit of alizarin crimson just sort of at the base of where the cone flower is. And then this will be just softly blending down. The rigger brush is becoming one of my favourite brushes to use. It just does things that my pointed rounds can't always manage. It's just so slender and lovely. So those lines are very faint. We'll probably add in a few more once the petals have dried. So I'm just going to fill up the flower with the rest of the petals. Now we've come to the actual cone flower itself. So I've got some cadmium orange, and I'm going to begin by placing that in along the line of where the pencil line was drawn, and just get that filled in with some water. Okay, there's quite a lot going on the cone flower, so I want some alizarin crimson, maybe a little bit of cadmium red as well. And first off, we're just going to use the 4/10 brush to create the textured edge. So just using it, little dashes that are going to bleed down in, and you notice they're angled, they're not just sticking out, but they are angled upwards and always sort of pointing up towards the top of that cone flower. And then I'm going to drop in, sort of find it sort of slowly drying, slowly settling into the page. I'm going to drop in a little bit of shadow around the bottom, sort of dab that in, and I'm also going to use that colour, a little bit more concentrated, to sort of complete the edge. Get that texture. Nice one. Okay. We're going to let that dry, and we're going to have a look at our butterfly. Now, I am going to be painting this detail on the butterfly in a sort of with an attempt to be accurate, but I also want to sort of stress that we're doing a sort of fairly sort of loose artistic version of the butterfly. So I don't want anyone to worry about sort of the exact sort of lines and things, but if you do want, do go and have a look at a photo of a butterfly. But this, I'm going to draw in lines that I'm looking at a reference photo as well, and I'm going to draw in some lines in pencil that are just going to help us create a really cool shape for our butterfly. So I've just painted in with my rigger brush all the pencil lines that I drew. So now would be a good time to pause the video and just study that and draw that in if you're not using a photo reference. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue painting in Mars Black all the rest of the detail. And so what a lot of that means is actually thickening some of the lines in places, and then around the edge of the wings there are lots of little sort of white dots on the wings that we can do by just using the unpainted space. And there is a bit of a sort of I guess a reverse scalloped edge on the edge of the wing as well. So again, I'm just going to go round using concentrated Mars Black with my 4/10 brush and paint in the dots as I see them. So yet again, I'm just using my reference image to fill in the body and wings using my 4/10 brush. And at this point I'm just sort of using the brush to find little bits of unpainted space to sort of create texture. There are sort of white spots on the body of the butterfly, but again I'm not worrying too much about being really exact. But this is another good point to maybe pause the video and just study what we've done. The one key thing is when you're colouring in the black is there are sort of like rough brushstroke appearances on some of the black sections of the wings, so don't just do it all completely smoothly. Alright, for the antennae, we'll get back to the rigger brush and we can do lovely slender lines. And then for the legs or the various protrusions, we'll just have that. And now it's time to work into the flower head. So I'm just getting a bit of my sort of reddy orange colour, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint in swirls of this red colour, little dashes with the 4/10 brush. Just getting a little bit bigger as they go down, making sure we still leave plenty of sort of unpainted space between all these little dashes. And this is just going to help create the sense of the many little seeds that the butterfly so loves. It's a bit like painting a strawberry seed, as you're looking for these diagonal curves that really help sort of give the sense of the roundness of the coneflower. And then towards the bottom I'm going to add a little bit of darkness into those. When you've sort of filled them in all from that side and you've got this side left, I'm just coming back down round and then just sort of fudging it in to the middle there, and it should work because we're still working on a diagonal. Lovely. And I'm going to take a bit of alizarin crimson And I'm actually going to mix it into my shadow mix. Just darken it down even further. Get a nice little brush and just pick up some of the darker little dashes around the edge, particularly around the bottom. To just help reinforce the feeling of the roundness of the shape. And we're very nearly there actually. We're just really now building up details, building up shadow. And obviously we need to put a stem on this flower. The stem can be just a nice little bit of sap green, but we'll also want a bit of shadow in it because it is just sitting underneath these stems. I've got a size 0 brush here, and that pencil line, start from there. It's quite a sturdy stem, it's quite thick. And then just a little bit more darkness. Make sure you've also got a nice fine point on your brush. Okay, so what I'm going to do is let it all dry, and then we're going to rub out the pencil and just see if there's any more shadow or anything we can add to make it really wonderful. So the last few things I'd like to add, just a few sweeps of extra colour on the wings there, in some of the little areas, and then just a bit of shadow. Keep it nice and dilute. There is a little sort of dark area in the middle of the cone flower. And just by adding a few dashes and just a few little sweeps out from that centre. And there we have a lovely butterfly on an Echinacea flower. Thanks so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed that one. So Ant thinks that this is a really difficult one, so I'd love you to prove him wrong, and there he is behind the camera. So comment below to let me know how you got on with that one, and of course tag us at the Winton Paper Co on Instagram if you're sharing your work there. So if you want to never miss another video, just hit that subscribe button, and yeah, we'll see you again next time. Bye!